Welcome to Forest Chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Abdul-Raouf Mohamed-Isa about basketball refereeing. Abdul started his refereeing career around 2002 and over his journey reached the point of refereeing for the State Women's League. Welcome to Forest Chat, Abdul.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on Forest Chat.
It's great to have you here, Abdul. Abdul, people have seen all sorts of things about basketball. What is basketball?
So basketball is a team sport. You've got 5 players on the court from each team at once, and the goal is to score more points than the other team by the end of the game. At the junior level, a game can usually go for 2 20-minute halves, and as you get to the, Olympic and international level, they'll be playing 10 to 12-minute quarters, and the clock stops after every stoppage, whereas juniors, because of time schedules and that, the clock's usually running. But yeah, the main goal is to score more points than the other team.
Okay, I didn't realise there was such a difference between the duration of play.
Yeah, it's for juniors because of schedules and time slots and recreation centres having limited court space. They need to keep quite a tight ship in terms of time slots. Whereas once you get to the higher levels, because it's usually just the one game on the court, they can stop the clock every time there's a stoppage, timeout, foul. And at that professional level, you can get quite close in the game. So you need to be very specific with the timing. A lot more can happen in the short space of time as you get to the higher levels.
Yeah, the bigger guys can travel the court much faster than the little guys.
Yeah, and they even, at the early stage, you don't even have a shot clock. So in basketball, most shot clocks are 24 seconds, which gets introduced when you're in under 16, under 18s at possibly the state league level or just a bit below that, depending if they have the resources to actually run the shot clocks. And then in college, I'm pretty sure it's a 30-second shot clock. There's no kind of one size fits all in terms of rules. Also, under 10s will play with a size 5. You switch to a size 6 ball in under 14s, and then once you go to under 16s, under 18s and higher, it's a size 7 ball for men's, but females only go as high as a size 6 basketball. So there's another difference as well.
Wow, so it's far more intricate as far as the sport goes and where you are and what your experience might even be, I guess, from a gameplay perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I just remembered was under 10s, usually they'll lower the ring if there's access to that. So yeah, some recreation centers will have the option of lowering the basketball ring to about 8 feet for the juniors, just to give them a better chance of scoring, especially you can imagine how short some of the players are when they're under 10, because it'll be it might be an under 10 age group, but they'll have kids that are under 8, under 6 possibly.
Right, so there's good ways that they can actually account for the group of players that you're dealing with. You talked about a shot clock. How does that work?
So the way the shot clock works is once a team has possession of the ball, they have 24 seconds to attempt a shot. The shot clock will reset if it hits the ring. If they shoot the ball and it hits the backboard or doesn't hit the ring at all, then the shot clock keeps running. And if it gets to 0, then that's a violation. So the other team gets the ball from the side.
Oh, like a foul if you pushed someone or something like that.
Yeah. So it's it's another violation, which in essence, it helps to speed up the game, because you can imagine, let's say a team's up by 2 points with a minute left on the time clock. In the junior levels with no shot clock, they could potentially just pass the ball around for a whole minute, which watching that as a spectator would be quite boring. So having the shot clock introduced at higher skill levels speeds up the game and keeps the game interesting.
Right. So then there's also less likelihood that a game will go on for like 4 hours or something like that, because probably not really, because you're actually in gameplay and your clock will be ticking.
Yeah, it's more, it keeps the game flowing. That's the idea of the even as a basketball referee, one of the ideas is to keep the game flowing as much as you can without it getting out of control.
I've seen the markings on the floor in a basketball court, and they've got that circle off from the ring, and then they've got a couple of lines, and they mean something, don't they?
Yeah, so there's a semicircle underneath the ring, which, depending on the league, it's called the no charge zone. So you can't actually, in basketball, there's an offensive foul where if a defensive player is standing their ground facing the attacker, if the offensive player is the one that actually initiates the contact, they can get called for a charge and then it goes to the defensive team. But in that semicircle right underneath the ring, you can't get called for a charge. And then you've got the keyway, which is the straight or angled lines, depending again on the court. And that keyway there's a rule there where you can't spend more than 3 seconds in the keyway as a offensive player. And then the line up the top, that's the free throw line. So when a player gets fouled on a shooting foul, that's where they shoot free throws from, which are worth 1 point.
And then can you get more than 1 point on a shot?
On a free throw, no. The reason they call it as free throw is because on a shooting foul, that's where they'll shoot their free throws from, and there's no defensive plays as such in their way. Whereas during normal gameplay, you'll score 2 points inside the bigger D, which is the 3-point line. So inside that large D, that's 2 points. Whereas if you shoot outside the D, it's 3 points. If your foot's on the line, it's a 2-pointer. You need all parts of your body behind the line when you release the shot for it to be a 3-pointer.
And the 3-pointer is worth more because you've thrown it in from further away.
Yes, yeah. So you need to be a bit more accurate and takes a bit more effort than the two.
Have you had some interesting plays that have come in?
Yeah, so another thing that can happen is while you're shooting, if you get fouled on the shot and your shot goes in, so potentially you can get a 4-point play. So you'll shoot the three, you've already released the shots, the ball's gone in, and someone fouls you while you're still in the act of shooting. Technically, the act of shooting is until you hit the ground again. So let's say you take a jump shot. So you've jumped, taken a shot, you've released the ball, someone's fouled you before you've actually touched the ground again. Then you can potentially get 4 points because you'll score the 3-pointer and get an and one on the free throw line.
But you have to put that free throw in.
Yes, yeah, you still have to score the free throw. It's not free in terms of you just get it automatically. You still have to score it. Yes.
Have you had some games that have got a bit out of control?
Yeah, you do get some games where the players and even spectators can get a bit too involved. As a referee, you do have to, like I said before, you want to let the game flow, but not get it out of control. So it's a lot of preventative things as such when you're refereeing. You want to be out of the way, but also keep things in line. In terms of like fights and that, I've been pretty lucky. Nothing's got too out of control, but I've seen other games where, players and spectators can get quite rowdy.
That's probably being generous, Abdul.
Yeah, that's probably putting it in lighter terms. They'll get you can get physical and not, so rather than just verbal abuse, you can get some physical abuse in games and, parents getting involved and spectators getting involved. And there should only be 10 players on the court at once, but every now and then you might get a few people run on the court, and that's when things have got out of hand.
It must be your role at that point to, I'll say, shut it down somehow.
Yeah, so at like lower levels, you might have like one court manager managing like a whole rec center, whereas as you get to the higher levels, you'll have security, you'll have other staff that can get involved and separate people. Yeah, at the junior level, it's more about, I guess, talking to or getting the adults or the responsible adults to remove the players who are causing trouble.
What levels have you actually refereed at?
I started locally at a rec center in Vic Park. It was called the Park Center because I played there as well. So that's just local on a Saturday morning. And then other local competitions I refereed at Kalamunda during the week, Port Rioan, and also Mundari. Did a bit of private school sports, after school sports. So various schools after after school. And then, so from the domestic level, next will be kind of what they call it's like a regional level, Wobble, the West Australian Basketball League. And then after that, the next level is the State Basketball League, which that was as high as I went. I did women's State Basketball League for one season, which they now call NBL One West.
So it sounds like there's a range of different competitions or leagues that are going on. You mentioned about 4 there, so
Yeah, and then if you want to go higher than the State League of the National League, and then after national, then international competitions like World Championships and the Olympics.
so people who are playing the sport and also refereeing, they have opportunities at all of those levels.
I guess another interesting competition that I had a chance to referee out was the Under 14 Girls Australian Club Championships back in 2008. So that's where they get clubs from different states coming together to play as their clubs. So not as a state team, but as their clubs in a competition against other clubs from other states, which gives them not just the clubs a chance to see what opponents are like in other states at that same level, but also the referees to engage with other referees from other states. And you pick up ideas, you learn a lot from how competitions are run elsewhere.
That sounds like a great way for the sport to get their different state bodies and state competitions to run at a more even level across the field, which makes national competitions at each of those levels probably more fair as well.
Yeah, I think I only had the experience of doing one of those club championships once. And what you notice is usually the higher populated states because they've got a higher pool of people to choose from, usually the level is higher. It's not always the case, but because you've got more people to choose from, there's more competition and usually the level of the game is higher in those states. In terms of running the competitions, like organizationally, yeah, there's a way you can get things to run more uniformly, which helps later on, obviously, the states when they get together.
We've heard a little bit about what basketball is. Is there somewhere people can go to find out more? Is there like a central, you mentioned Wobble?
Yeah, so in WA, Basketball WA would be the organization to check out. They'd have a website, or if you just want to check out like a local domestic league, just head to your nearest recreation center, and most recreation centers will have teams that are either looking for players, or you could, if you've got enough people, to actually register your own team, and that's kind of how to get started.
And you only need 5, so that's quite achievable for a good number of people, I would imagine.
Yeah, so 5's a good start. It can be quite high intensity, the game, so it's good to have 1 or 2 substitutes on the bench when you're starting, like depending on where you're playing. 5 is enough. And from experience, when we had 3 or 4 show up at a local game, there's usually 1 or 2 people hanging around that are willing to play another game, or that would just, it's better to have like a body on court than to start off with less. Most domestic leagues will let you start with 4, and then maybe the 5th one's running late, or you can just grab someone random off the side that wants to have a game.
So there's still a good amount of camaraderie by the sound of things amongst people who would be there because they love the sport too, and they're willing to jump in and have a go.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to see a team. So if you don't have enough players, you'll have to forfeit the game, which, yeah, no one wants to see that. They actually want to, especially at the local level, people want to go there to participate. So yeah, they'd rather see a game happen rather than not at all.
Abdul, what does it take you to be a basketball referee?
So a few of the things that it takes to be a referee, knowledge of the game, definitely. Like there's a rule book that, like any rule book, it can come down to interpretation of the rules. I came from a playing background first, so I did love the game and I wanted to learn more about it, and that's why I became a referee. But yeah, you got to be quite patient as well, especially what I find with the junior levels, you're more educating than enforcing the rules. Otherwise, if you were to officiate a game as it is by the book at those lower levels, you'd be stopping the game every 5 to 10 seconds. Whereas, yeah, you want the game to flow. You need to have like good communication skills and even being able to manage people. Most games you're going to have two referees. Sometimes one if they're short on referees. At the high levels, they'll have three referees on courts. You need to have a base level of fitness because you will be running up and down the court just as much, if not more than the players. Because you can imagine they've got 5 players in each team. They will move a lot, whereas there's only 2 referees and you have to be able to see the game and move with the game. Being able to read the game is a big thing. So coming from a playing background, that helps, but you don't need to specifically have played basketball to referee the game. It helps though, because then you can understand where the players are moving, what the ball's doing, and definitely an understanding of the game helps, even if you've never actually played it yourself. But I'd say communication would be a big thing because you're trying to concentrate on the game, but need to communicate with your co-official. You need to communicate with the bench when you're making foul calls and other things like that. So that's probably one of the more important things, to have good communication skills.
Do you have a set of signals?
Yes. So when you're stopping, when you blow the whistle, your hand will always, or most of the time, go up in the air. If it's a foul, it will be a closed fist. If it's a violation, an open fist. That signifies if you are refereeing a game where there is a stop clock for every whistle, then it signifies to the bench to stop the clock. When you're calling a foul to the bench, depending on the number of the player, you can use 1 or 2 hands. A closed fist means 10, and then the other hand will show 1 to 5 depending on the number on the player. So at like the junior levels, they'll suggest no numbers between 4 and 15, just so that you're not confusing 1, 2, and 3 with a score. So that's why the lowest number is usually a 4, and then the highest number 15, because that's the most you can have with 1 fist and 5 fingers. So when you're signifying or signaling the number of a foul to the bench, that's the number, and then the type of calls. A few kind of foul calls would be like a hands foul, so like a chopping of the arms over each other, a holding foul where you're holding one wrist with the other hand. There's a pushing foul, so you kind of motion and push with both hands. And so that's just a few of the basic ones. And then the violations, you've got a travel where one hand kind of rolls over the top of the other. Score, anytime there's a score, you kind of signal to the bench so they know, because you're on the court, you'll be able to see if it's a 3 or a 2-pointer. So with a 2-pointer, you just signal 2 points with your fingers towards the bench. Whereas with a 3, if they've attempted a 3, you put one hand up with 3 fingers. If it's a successful 3, the other hand goes up with 3 fingers. Whereas if it's unsuccessful, then you just drop the hand that you put up first. So that's a few of the kind of calls that you would make. And so foul calls are more obvious ones because you see them a lot more getting called towards the bench, whereas the violation calls, you'll put your hand up in the air, open hand, so people know it's a stoppage, and then you'll make the signal of the violation if it's a shot clock violation or a travel or double dribble. But usually with violations, I'd say most people don't notice them as much because you're not calling them to the bench as such.
Okay, so you've really got a couple of different communicating systems. So you do need to be clear about what all of those things mean. And I gather there'll be a common set that becomes known pretty easily.
Yeah, the more, I guess, rarer calls, so it's uniform in terms of calls worldwide. But there's ones which are a lot more common that you'll see more often. And the other reason you signal to the score bench is because they'll have a score sheet, which they won't record specifically what each foul is, but they need to record personal fouls for each player, because after 5 or 6 fouls, depending on the league, that player will be fouled out of the game and they won't be able to participate anymore. So you can't just foul continuously as a player, otherwise eventually you'll get fouled out of the game.
So that's all a part about, I guess, keeping it fair, and you're trying to keep the game moving. And if you get someone who's fouling, they're actually stopping the game regularly, so you can actually move them off the field so that they don't keep interrupting the game, so to speak.
Yeah. So in terms of personal fouls, 5 or 6, most of the time it's 5, but some leagues have 6 fouls for a personal player. But there are other fouls like a disqualifying foul or intentional foul, or unsportsmanlike, sorry, they can automatically get ejected from the game if the foul is deemed necessary. If there's a foul that's, how can I put this, not within the spirit of the game, they can automatically get ejected just for that one foul. Another thing with fouls is if a game is played in halves, if there's 8 team fouls, then every foul after that will be shooting fouls rather than just from the side. So that's another, I guess, disincentive for people to foul too much because it will put the other team on the free throw line more often than not.
So there's a lot to the rules, obviously, with what can happen during the game and actually drive the game to cause fouls and so on. And there's also a system almost built in to try and limit just how much of that goes on.
Yeah, but so and the game's evolved so much. I don't know when, but even there was a point, I can't remember exactly when, but there never used to be a 3-point line. So it meant that it would crowd the keyway because there was no point in shooting any further out because you didn't score any more points, and there never used to be a shot clock. And the game has evolved, and most of the time it's to help the game flow, keep it interesting, exciting.
So how do you keep up with all those rules?
Like anything, you've got the rule book, and every year they'll bring out a kind of update with what has changed. So you can buy a new rule book every year, or if you've got a rule book which you've had for years, you just have to keep updated every year. They'll give you like what has changed from the previous year's version.
And do they have any like process or meetings amongst referees, that sort of thing going on?
Yeah, so in general, like from my experience at the start of the year, you'll have, I guess, points of emphasis, things that from feedback from the last year that they want to focus on. So yeah, it's good to have, 3 to 4 key focus points so that the referees are all on the same page for the following season. The focus points may change throughout the season, but by having those meetings with officials saying, let's focus on these kind of key points so that there's a bit of consistency. So yeah, that's one of the C's that I remember. It was consistency, communication. And I can't remember what the last C was, but it was, and that's what you want in the game. You want, when you're a player, you don't mind the calls as long as they're consistent. And that's where the meetings between referees help.
And you also have some community then, I guess, amongst your referees, that because you're getting together and talking about what's going on with the rules and obviously the points of interest. And
Oh, definitely, yeah. And look, because you're all your goal is the same. You want people to enjoy the game. You want people to enjoy watching it. And as a referee, my goal was always, you're not, people aren't there to watch you. They're there to watch the game. So building that community between the referees, it helps grow the game from the grassroots all the way up to the professional level.
And how much physical fitness and training do you need to do to be there?
At the lower levels, the skill, and you're usually, most of the time, taller than the players, so you can see a lot more. Whereas as the game grows and you get to the high levels, your fitness needs to be pretty high because the players are getting tired, you're getting tired, but you're all having to make decisions while you're fatigued. So it's good to have a high fitness level so that when you're making these decisions, when you're tired, they're still the same ones you were making at the start of the game, and keeping that consistency throughout. Yeah. So having a good fitness level. I'm not sure in terms of like comparison, how to compare what type of fitness level you have, because every game's going to be different. And we, as the referees, we can't control the pace of the game as such, because it's the players that are controlling the ball and they can control how the game goes. But it's better to be prepared for a high intensity up and down game than to come thinking that it's just going to be a slower passing the ball a lot. And yeah, so it's better to be prepared for like those kind of high intensity games that just you're running up and down the court numerous times. One example, I did kind of measure how far I ran in just a local school game, and it would have been about 3 to 4 Ks in 40 minutes. It's a lot of stop start though. It is, yeah, very stop start.
Imagine with especially if you've got a shot clock in place, that you're going to be traveling, 20 seconds in one direction and, and 20 in the other.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, potentially you could basically be going up and down the court every 15 to 20 seconds, unless of course the offensive team gets the rebound and then it stays on that half. But yeah, there are some games. And look, if the offensive team has a style of game where they're just putting up shots every 5 to 10 seconds, you could, yeah, be up and down the court after every shot. Yeah, they're the games that you really need to have your fitness level up and also just be on the ball and be ready to head up and down the court every play.
And what did you do to maintain that level of fitness?
So I still play. When I refereed, I still played at least 2 or 3 games a week, and that kept my fitness level up. And at the time, I was probably, well, honestly, when I was kind of refereeing a lot, I'd play Monday, I'd play and referee on a Monday night, I'd play and referee on a Wednesday night, Thursday night I'd play a game, and Saturday I'd referee for about 3 or 4 hours, and then Sunday I'd referee again. So I guess my fitness was getting kept up by just the amount of basketball I was involved in rather than any other activities.
You're doing enough of it that it was actually a training program in and of itself.
Yes, very much so. And as the game is, it's not constant running. It's very stop start, and the intensity. Like if I were to compare it to the running I do now, just an example, I filled in for a friend about 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought, yeah, I'll be all right. I'll be able to run around for 40 minutes. We did have one substitute, and yeah, after the game, I thought, I forgot how intense a game of basketball can be. Yeah.
We've had a good chat about what it takes you to be a basketball referee, Abdul. Let's have a
Yeah.
little break now. And after the break, we'll have a look at what it means. We've had a look at what it takes. Now, let's have a look at what it means. Abdul, what does it mean that you're able to be a basketball referee?
So for me, the reason I became a basketball referee is I did want to learn more about the game after playing it for so long. And I was relatively quiet as a kid, and it got me out of my comfort zone. So in terms of personal development, that's why I also chose to become a referee. It brought me out of my shell, and it taught me a lot of I guess valuable life skills. It's definitely made me more assertive as a person, and being able to communicate concisely as well with because yeah, when you're a referee, yeah, the game flows so quickly, you don't have a chance really to have those long conversations. You have to be quite concise with your communication. I do love the community, and that's one reason, even though I stopped refereeing for at least close to 10 years, I've kept in touch with a few people from the community, and it's one of those things where they're always on the call out for more referees. It's definitely not for everyone. It takes a lot of patience. You do need to have thick skin at times, and having a good focus as well on the game. For what it means to my, I guess, family, it's helped with being able to relate to people at all different levels of the game, and not just basketball, but remembering what it's like at that grassroots level to learn something new. And like I said before about the younger age groups, it is more about education. I'll give you one example where I was refereeing an under 10s game, and I'd made a violation call, like a double dribble or a travel. And the first question I asked, I don't like to assume no one knows. So I'll ask not just the person I've called the violation on, but just all the 10 players. I was like, I'll say, do you know why I called that? And some will and the others won't. So I'll go, "Okay," so I'll explain it to the people that want to listen. And then as they get older, it is more about, enforcing the rules. There's always going to be education, but yeah, it's definitely, it changes throughout the game. So yeah, it's helped me relate to like my nieces and nephews and that as they're learning different sports or learning in general. And so the community, it's been good to keep in touch with the community here and there, or if I see them out and about. Referees aren't always the most favorite people to, that's it. We are human. We're going to make mistakes, but it's about, I guess, being accountable, and when you make a mistake, knowing how to improve from it. And so other things as a referee, as you get to even at the local level, but as you get to the high levels, we have referee coaches who will watch us referee, and they'll give us feedback after the games, just on things that they've noticed, like habits or small things that we might be consistently missing certain types of fouls or violations. One thing from memory I can remember, which has helped me in life as well, what I used to do, I didn't think about it, but when they explained it to me, I would subconsciously, depending on who my co-official was, I would, if they were less experienced, I'd actually drop my standard to kind of match theirs rather than staying where I was and making them, I guess, come up to my level, which helped me as well in life, rather than, so kind of keeping myself where I need to be rather than lowering. So when I refereed with people that were higher than me, I would actually step up my game to match theirs. And that's helped me in life, in work, and that, where I try to stay true to myself rather than switching to someone else's standards. So that's something, I remember reading some feedback, and so it's, getting that, I guess, honest feedback from people who are a neutral voice rather than from the teams or the players. One experience I do remember quite memorable is I was refereeing it was a finals game. It was a very close game. And one of the parents from the losing team actually came up to me and the other official, and they actually congratulated us. And they said that was one of the best games they've watched. We were very consistent, and you don't get a lot from usually the losing team coming up to you and actually thanking you for a well officialed game. So it's those small things that, the appreciation you get, because it's like anything. People usually remember your mistakes, but they don't remember what you've done well. They'll point out those kind of mistakes you made rather than remembering that overall you actually did a pretty good job. So it's definitely, it's helped me grow as a person and helped me not just in refereeing basketball, but life in general.
Isn't it amazing how you learn things in one environment that transfers across to other parts of your life? It's a little bit like self-reflection.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, obviously at the time when you're in the moment, you don't have much time to reflect and think about it. But when you have time outside of that area, you're like, you can transfer those skills that you've learned, or just small things that stand out for you that you can use in other parts of your life.
It's amazing to have that as an opportunity. Basketball has a lot of impact for people in their lives. What do you see people coming to basketball that they get out of basketball?
When you start, it's probably more of that social aspect, seeing, especially at the local level, you get to see the same people every day. Like, for example, I played with my older brother and some old high school friends. So even after school, we'd still be seeing each other once a week. It was like a little catch up, and then we'd have like a little annual thing. So it was a good way to keep that social connection. And then I coached my little brother for a couple of seasons, and that was a good way to kind of connect with him. And also, we even played mixed basketball with our family. So the three brothers, my sister and my mum and cousin, we used to I think my sister-in-law might have joined as well. So it's a way to keep socially connected, and it's a weekly thing. Most times you'll be seeing each other once a week. You kind of look forward to that catch up or just seeing that person for that thing once a week, and it builds a lot of it's a lot like team bonding and teamwork, and that yeah, it's that I think it is that connection with that community that you build and meeting other people, and even if so, one another example is people that I played against as opponents, 5, 10 years down the track, I happened to bump into them, never knew their name, but you'd recognize each other by face. And yeah, you'd still, the memories come flooding back when you're like, oh, do you remember when we used to play down at this rec center? And yeah, just, yeah, you never kind of, I guess, forget the feelings and the memories that you've built while you're playing the game and being involved in that area of your life.
That's an important part of having a life history, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're not going to remember everything, but yeah, it's those kind of small moments that come back to you when you see a familiar face or go to a familiar area that you've been to earlier on. Yeah, the memories definitely come flooding back.
Is there any other aspect of basketball that impacts on your life?
So another viewpoint that I had, I loved watching basketball. I still do love watching it. And that's another thing. When my brother and a few friends, we were season members at watching the Perth Wildcats. So that's another thing that, every week or every fortnight, it was a good way to kind of catch up with each other and enjoy the game, just watching. I must say it is, since becoming a referee, it was harder to just watch and enjoy a game because you're constantly analyzing. So I had to kind of flick the switch when I watched the game of basketball and not to, I guess, analyze it or watch for those I had to a bit like watching a magic show. If you've got that analytical mindset, you're trying to figure out how works. Yeah. So when I was a referee trying to watch the game as a spectator, I had to switch my brain from a referee to a spectator and just enjoy the game rather than overanalyze every single call or play I had. Yeah. It wasn't easy. I still do it now and again. But yeah, I definitely try to enjoy the game just as a spectator, not as a referee.
I guess then that helps you as a referee to have that difference in your thinking, because you're also wanting the spectators to have that focus on the game and not on you. So understanding that what you do as a referee can have a big impact on that.
Yeah, it's a bit harder when you're actually refereeing because you have to be in that mindset and you don't, it's harder to gauge the picture that people are seeing from a different perspective. You understand it, but when you're actually refereeing, you have to focus on the job and it is a bit harder to think about that as such. And that's where having that referee coach or someone on the sideline who is in that spectator position can see the whole court and give you feedback on that. And so while you're actually refereeing, you can focus on what you're doing. It's in the back. It is in the back of your mind, but yeah, it's definitely not something you think about while you're doing it. It's more getting that feedback afterwards.
We've covered quite a lot about what it means that Abdul can be a basketball referee. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll talk about how you do it. We've had a look at what it means to referee basketball. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Abdul, how would someone start, at least on their journey of becoming a basketball referee?
So the best way to start is to go to your local recreation center or local domestic competition, and I'd ask either the manager of the center or even just one of the referees, who do I speak to become a referee? Most of the times they'll have what they call a level 0 referee course, which is just the basic of the rules and what it takes to become a referee. And that would be your starting point, just speaking to like a referee that you see or someone that organizes the referees. Yeah. So in terms of, there would be like a website, but it's probably best to speak to someone in person because they'll have like the local knowledge of when another course is coming up or what's involved in becoming a referee.
Doesn't sound like it's too big of a hurdle for people to do, like from a fitness perspective and those sorts of things. Obviously, if you already have knowledge about the game, you'll have a bit of a leg up. And clearly there'll be things to learn, like how you signal, but If you've been following games, you would have seen that already. You'd at least know some of it. And it sounds like there's an entry-level course that you can do, which should be very helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think, look, they're always on the call out for referees. So if you show your interest, if there isn't a course coming up, they'll teach you a lot of the practical start of it. They'll even probably help you. So when you're first starting out as a junior referee, nowadays, I think they wear like a yellow or green shirt so people know that you're learning. They'll teach you kind of the on-court basics, and then when a course comes up, you can go and do that so that you're officially accredited. And then, yeah, there's different levels if you want to step up to the different levels of refereeing at higher leagues and that. And yeah, in terms of fitness, it's one of those things that's, as long as you have a base level of fitness, which is good, but as you referee more, your fitness will improve as well because of the games that you referee.
You'll start to get a feel for it and get some practice at it because you'll be there doing it.
Yeah. And from my own experience, even if I hadn't refereed for about 10 years and still being in touch with the community or people that organized referees for rec centers or schools, they're always on the lookout. And it's something that, a bit like riding a bike, once you're back on the court, you do remember the rules may have changed, but in terms of the refereeing game, yeah, a lot of the basics stay the same. So you can kind of jump back on and off. If you lose touch, you can always get back into it quite easily.
So based on that response, I'll ask you, Abdul, what's next?
Yeah. So for me, in terms of basketball refereeing, I still stay in touch in terms of just private school games after work and that. I tried going back into regular domestic refereeing like during the week, but for me, it was too much of a commitment, which I couldn't do at the time. And I've definitely drawn the line at not doing any more weekend games because I do remember how your weekend pretty much just flew by. I enjoyed it, but your weekend pretty much was gone when you started refereeing on weekends because, yeah, you get asked left, right, and center, can you do this game? Can you do that game? So that's where I've drawn the line. Nowadays, I stick to kind of semi-regularly doing games during the week just for school sports, so like one or two games every fortnight of that, nothing. And that's even probably exaggerating, maybe like one game a month. Yeah, just to stay in touch. And when I do it, I still enjoy it, but it's not something that I will probably go back to regularly or as much as I used to.
You have had a time, though, around 10 years or so where you were like heavily involved. You didn't need an exercise program. You're doing so much of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So refereeing 3 to 4 times a week and playing as well, it definitely kept me quite fit and very involved with the game. And yeah, I still keep in touch with a few people from those times. And like we mentioned before, the community, because we had that shared experience as referees, you can always, go back and talk to people about what it's like. And some of the referees I used to ref with, they are refereeing at like that national level and even some international level referees that I used to referee with.
So they've gone on to do what they want to do, and I'm sure they've put a lot of effort into that too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You have to keep the work up and keep up to date with the rules, and also keep your fitness level up. And yeah, it's a commitment. It's a big commitment, but it's what they enjoy. So yeah, all for it.
Thank you very much for being on Forest.chat, Abdul. All the Forest.chat listeners wish you all the best with your future endeavours.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Paul, and thanks for everyone for listening.
Great to have you on the show. You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we talked with Abdul-Raouf Mohamed-Isa about being a basketball referee. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved in Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. You get advance notice of episodes when you subscribe to the email list. Listen to the episodes at forest.chat/episodes. If you or someone you know does something that other people may be interested in, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a local business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.